So just to remind you, this is a study in which we're trying essentially to recruit everyone in England, and I'm afraid it is England because of the way that this rather strange devolved health service is set up now, who has this lysosomal storage disorder. Because what we're trying to do is to really get a decent grip on the natural history of these disorders with and without treatment. Sorry. I apologize. It's absolutely revolting, but I'm afraid it's now doing that. Because what we're trying to do is to estimate the effectiveness and cost effectiveness as best we can of enzyme replacement therapies. We're also, and this is for us crucially important, we're trying to get a much better handle on the lifetime healthcare costs and economic impact on the people who have lysosomal storage disorders and on their families. This is something we think has been somewhat under-thought through in much of the work that's gone on thus far. We're trying to provide, these are rather secondary objectives, we're trying to actually help develop a better way of thinking about treatment responsive measures, so ways of measuring how well people are responding to treatment. I mean, I will say it's been an absolutely fascinating process for us. I mean, I should say I'm a general pediatrician. You know, I got into this stuff in a sense by accident because I'm a generalist, a general pediatrician, an epidemiologist. So working through the detail with the clinicians and with the associations of these conditions, trying to suss out how you produce measures that are sufficiently capture the totality of what's going on in a patient's life. Understanding that for each of these conditions there are different organ systems affected at different times. Sometimes we're looking at quite steep step changes, other times at gradual changes. And trying to turn these into measures that make sense and we can interpret is really quite tricky, but in fact we think we're getting somewhere. And the last one I put in just to annoy the drug companies, but we will for the first time be able to look at the difference between these two products, but never mind. Passing swiftly on. There's a whole bunch of us involved. I won't bore you. It's, some of us backgrounds range from pediatrics, health service research, health economics, public health, whatever, statistics and so on and so on. But basically just there's a bunch of us down there who are working on this. Importantly, this is a collaborative venture that we got into with all the clinicians from the centres who are licensed to use enzyme replacement therapy in this country. So all of them are involved, and all of them have been involved right from the beginning, from the inception of the project. And equally important, what has been great for us is that we've been able to be involved with a number of the groups of patients' associations across these conditions. Oh, hang on. Sorry. And, oh, God, this is revolting, isn't it? Okay. Just, I mean, I won't belabor the point, but it's, for us in a way, been a great experience because we have hugely transformed the stuff we do as we go along by, you know, Alan and others saying, no, don't be so damn stupid, you can't do it that way around. Yeah. And this is something we hope will carry on because this is difficult stuff and it's difficult to work out how best to get the data and keep it pure. Just other things, obviously. I just wanted to mention the last one was obviously the pharmaceutical companies are heavily involved in this group of conditions in a way that is quite unusual for most of medicine. Partly because there's a relatively small number of pharmaceutical companies involved in working with these conditions. And it's worth saying that there are very substantial amounts of money ride on this. And so there's a particular, been some particular imperatives in thinking about the work. So we've been very clear that we don't want to hold the pharmaceutical companies out of this. And so we're using, through our website, we're making sure that we're being very transparent about what we're doing, when we do it. And that's available to anyone who's interested, including all the companies. Okay, just to remind you why we've got a problem, why did the HTA want us to do it? Well, it's quite simple, in a way. We're talking about multiple conditions, each of which is individually uncommon or rare. The natural history is relatively poorly characterized. There's a real problem with deciding on outcome measures or simple outcome measures that are treatment responsive, that change responsive over time. The drugs are absolutely ludicrously expensive. I mean, many of us would say that that's part of the problem, but hey, these are very expensive drugs. The trials that tend to be done to allow licensing are almost always short-term. They almost always use surrogate outcome measures rather than the ones that actually matter to the people who've got these conditions. And in a sense, you have to take it on trust that the effects on the surrogate outcome measures actually are going to have the same effects on your lives. And finally, and this is in a way the kind of good bit of this, is that it's a politically difficult situation. Because it actually allows us space in which to operate. Because if it were not politically difficult, we wouldn't be able to keep the funding running. But I'm glad to say it's been politically difficult, and I'm sure will remain so for a long time to come, which is great. So just to summarize what we're doing, we're trying to recruit everybody as best we can. We're looking at outcomes which look on, of course, survival, but essentially mostly based around quality of life, and the use of multiple clinical measures, and we're using some techniques around, it's called latent trait modeling, to try to work out a way of translating multiple clinical measures into clearer measures of progression or regression of disease. We're combining both retrospective data and prospective data collection. And in essence, the trick that we're using, because what we can't do is what you would ordinarily do when you're trying to say what effect does a drug have, which is you compare people who've got the drug with people who haven't got the drug. We're using a modeling technique which allows us to look at the fact that people have started using this drug at different ages and different stages of their conditions, dependent, in essence, on when the drug became available. Where are we? Well, I just want to say we had a monitoring visit from the HTA yesterday, from Tom Wally and Peter Davidson, and I did confess up early on in this that I sometimes wish my mobile phone hadn't been working when I got the original phone call from Peter Davidson saying, you know, would I take this on? Because it's been probably the toughest project I've ever done. And the main reason it's been the toughest project was the timing, which is that some of you may know that the whole system of research governance within the NHS in this country changed very rapidly around 2005, 6, 7. Coincident on the development of foundation trusts and changes in the relationship between health authorities and the providers of healthcare in hospitals. What these changes essentially did was to give substantially more independence to the providers of healthcare and to change the way they got paid. And the result is that the trusts became much more controlling about the things that are done within the trust and started being much tighter on risk and anxieties about risk. So something that should have taken us no time at all, which was the sorting out the research governance, i.e. the agreement from the trusts to allow us to work with them on this. The doctors are fine, we hastily add. The physicians all agreed and all wanted to work together, but the actual trust administration took us the better part of 2 years. It should have taken us a month or so, it took us the better part of 2 years. And in fact, there are still some funny bits. I mean, we have one of our collaborators who, in order to come to meetings of the group, has to take leave each time he wants to come to a meeting because his trust won't allow him to come otherwise. So there's certain sort of levels of insanity still left in the system. But anyway, we sort of got over that. We also, just to make life a little bit tricky, some of you may know the way in which nurses were paid changed dramatically halfway through, so that all the costings for the trial were off. So we had to go back and recost them because nurses' salaries went up substantially, which is a very good thing, but it's a... Some people didn't notice, but I can tell you nurses' salaries are transformed. Okay.